we've seen lots of houses hit, but before we get to that, I want to show you some of the cars that have been hit here. Just take a look at this one right here. We actually spoke to a family who says this is one of their relatives' cars just bought a month ago. One of the most common techniques that you can use to make sure you're not leaving any precious cargo in the back seat is to add more precious cargo before you even start your drive. So when you finish your drive and you head to the back seat to pick up those things you left at the start of your drive, make sure you're picking up everything, your phone, your keys, maybe even your left shoe. And make sure you're doing a clean sweep to make sure everything, all that precious cargo, including your kids, leaves with you. Now at this point you might be thinking, well, they should be used to it because it's Florida, it's summer, and it rains almost every single day. But people who live along this road say it's the worst they've seen it in years, and they think these drains are not being cleared often enough to keep up with all the water that they're getting. Yeah, the cost to fix this building will be a hefty price tag for a small business. The owner tells me he's still waiting on the insurance company to tell him exactly how much it'll cost. So many people love coming to Southwest Florida for our beautiful clear waters. It's one of the biggest attractions in our area. And it turns out we're not the only ones who love it. So do our seagrass. They thrive in clear water that's close to the sunlight. But experts say our water isn't quite clear enough right now. That surveillance video really was a key part of the investigation. Once we started airing it, investigators took a second look at the troopers' claims and compared them to what they saw in the video. Imagine having just this much of your home, 6 inches in a flood zone, and now you're required to pay costly flood insurance. It's happening right now in Southwest Florida, and many families say they're struggling to figure out how they're going to make this work. Lots of debris. We've been seeing pieces of shingle all throughout this neighborhood coming off of roofs in people's houses, just all over the ground down here. If we want to take you to my left, you'll see lots of crews right here working to try and clear up some of this debris right now. 22 tons of these shells is obviously going to make a lot of room for those young oysters, but it goes beyond that. It's important for all of the fish and other wildlife that are here in the water and rely on these shells to provide space for them as they grow and thrive. In several core subjects, the county didn't make the grade.
There's so many factors that could have played a role.
District spokesman Rob Spicker says they're trying to identify all of those factors quickly. Are there any sort of preliminary hypotheses, if you will, as to what may have caused the scores to come in the way they did?
Well, we know one thing for sure is Hurricane Ian.
Spicker says losing weeks of class time in the fall set some students back. He also says remote learning put into place by COVID-19 changed the foundation for the youngest students tested this year.
We don't have great data to demonstrate it, but we know that their learning foundation was severely impacted by those 2 years.
Daniel Duncan says he wasn't too surprised by this year's results and that serious changes need to happen.
I feel like they just need to concentrate on the basics, you know.
He says his daughter teaches in the district and that teachers need more time to really teach.
What would help give them that time back is not having to spend time registering books and doing all the things outside the classroom that don't pertain to the students.
He'd like to see the district give teachers the room to work with students individually to help them catch up.
Each individual student needs some individual time to get the basics, to read, to do math, to do science.
Spicker says right now that's the plan.
So a teacher will come to the class and introduce the benchmarks to all of them, but then break the class down into smaller groups, 2, 3, 4 students that are at the same place or need the same help. And really work on those areas with them.
Well, right now, all these residents are focusing on cleanup, and we've been here all day. We've seen lots of houses hit, but before we get to that, I want to show you some of the cars that have been hit here. Just take a look at this one right here. We actually spoke to a family who says this is one of their relatives' cars just bought a month ago, and it got hit by flying debris during this tornado, and as a result, you can see that bumper damaged right there. We've also seen lots of dirt and mud flung onto these cars, so lots of people are hosing down their cars right now. We're going to walk just this way and show you what happened to some of the carports here. Just take a look at this one right up ahead. This is one that peeled halfway off as a result of this tornado, and crews have been out here all morning and afternoon trying to fix it. They've peeled it off completely, so they just have to deal with these pillars. We actually talked to a man whose mother's car was actually parked underneath this carport, and she was at home, so she was fine, but her car was actually mostly unscathed, just a damaged light. But it's not just the cars here that ended up damaged. As we said, and as we've shown you throughout the show, we've had lots of home damage as well. We want to take you to some images that we got today. As we were going through the Eagle Ridge community, we saw homes with holes in their roofs, and after seeing our initial footage, crews were out here putting tarp over those holes. We saw several backyards covered in tree limbs as a result of the strong winds. We had a lot of people's pool cages were hit hard, some of them almost completely torn off or busted in by flying limbs. And even before the tornado was officially confirmed as an EF1, neighbors told us they knew it had to be something serious after what they heard and once they saw all the damage.
When I looked out the front door and I said, oh my God, one of the palm trees is down, and I didn't know if it was in the yard or in the neighbor's house or in the street.
We were here for Irma. It looked like Irma, only in a 2-city block area. I mean, trees ripped down, roots uprooted, roofs off of houses, things ripped apart.
And right now, the road into Eagle Ridge is open. It was closed earlier today so crews could get through and assess the damage, but it is open for people to come back in. It's not just residents. And speaking of residents, we've seen a lot of people just checking on each other, asking each other, how's the damage at your place? Because, of course, we've seen people whose lanais were messed up, furniture got blown around. So everybody's just checking on each other right now, hosing off their cars, trying to make sure that everything's okay, all things considered. And you can count on NBC2 to keep you updated as we get a full assessment of exactly how much damage this cost and what it did to this community. I'm live.
Lee Grant was home alone when the storm surge took over outside her door.
The water came up 3.5 feet in about an hour.
Water from the nearby canal quickly flooded outside and inside her home. Grant was in her bedroom, wondering how she'd get herself and her 10-year-old dog to safety.
I heard knock, knock, knock. And I thought, this is it. This is my rescuer.
It was a rescuer, a stranger, and a neighbor. This man, Charlie Tisdale, lives across the road from her.
We got 6 feet of water in about 30 to 45 minutes. I watched it from the second floor.
Grant says the two had never had a conversation, but he still came to help.
Prior to him coming in, were you thinking, I gotta get out, or?
Yeah, I was. The water was deep, and I thought about I had to get out before I got trapped. Can you carry my dog? And he said, sure.
No more words needed. He grabbed her dog and helped her to higher ground.
Right across the grass and over here, and I just held his shoulder, and he guided me across, and we walked up those stairs. The water was halfway up those stairs, about 8 steps up in the water, and then we made it.
Grant says everyone on their street who stayed is okay. Today they're cleaning up and looking ahead.
There's no words to explain it. There's not. I'm just glad everybody's safe.
She says when she's ready and able, she wants to help others, especially the man who helped her to safety.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.